So you're the new leader. For you, coming on to a leadership role, taking that over can be a very exciting thing. Can also be very threatening, not only to you, but to the others that you're leading. The problem you get into in leadership is that very often you come into the role and again, very often you don't have the opportunity to get the mentoring or the training that you need to really make you the leader that you want to be. So what do? You use what you know. Let's take a look at it today and see if you're going to take people, right? If you're going to take them along this path, where do you want to take them? Why should they follow you? Here's some suggestions for you in the process. First, you probably were a really good worker, and that's how you got promoted into a leadership role. The problem is, just because you were a good worker doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be a good leader, but you can learn. This is the thing about leadership is that I don't believe that good leaders are born. They're developed. And they're developed by the leaders that they see, the leaders that they see and they don't want to replicate. They, learn in a variety of ways. You can take courses. There's lots of different ways to learn leadership. And the problem is that as you're learning your leadership role, you find that there's things that you will learn that are positive and negative from each of the leaders that you learn from. And unfortunately, you learn from both sides of that. Some of the people you learn from are going to give you suggestions and modeling that's positive. Others are going to show you what not to do. The thing I want you to think about is this first question. Why should they trust you? Right? As you go and develop your leadership style and your leadership approach, one of the first things I would say to you is be trustworthy. Let people know that what you say is what you do, and what you do is what you say. So you want to think about being trustworthy as a huge aspect of leadership. When people know that they can trust you, they're going to believe you. If you say something long enough, probably people will believe you anyway, but that's not the way to lead. That's not positive leadership. That's not effective leadership. It's manipulative. So we have to think about what is true leadership. There are really some steps in developing true leadership. When you start looking at it, the first one I would say to you is time. You got to look at the time that it takes, and you got to put time into it. You got to have time to let people know that you're trustworthy. You got to learn whether the people you're working with are trustworthy also. Because a lot of times people will come into an organization or take over a leadership role and they'll have people show up. And there's a honeymoon period that you have where people will really be responsive. But then they start to push back. So what you have to do is you have to spend some time really sorting this out. This is where the testing comes in. When you're in that leadership role for a period of time, there are people who are going to test you. They want to find out, again, are you trustworthy? Can you be trusted with information? Do you do what you say and say what you're going to do? They want to know whether they can rely on you to be the trusted leader that they need. Tenacity is another one. Got to come up with 4 T's here, right? So tenacity is another one for you. Now, tenacity is that idea of hanging in there, even when people are struggling, is hanging in there. I've had some great people that had struggles sometimes. They struggled with lots of different things. But when I checked with them to find out what was going on with them, I very often found there was a reason for it. Maybe it's a family issue going on. Maybe there's something they're worried about. Maybe there's something they don't feel comfortable in doing. So developing that relationship where you can talk to them, you can be trustworthy, and you can trust them. You have a dialogue going with them where you start to learn about who that person is, what they're about and what they do, who they are, and you work through that. But that's that tenacity piece of working through the relationship to develop it. They talk about any relationship that's worth really having is worth putting the time into. Next, you have triumph. This is the opportunity to come together to share and celebrate the successes that you have, to really appreciate each other. These things I think should be done, at least quarterly, so that you can really talk about and kind of celebrate the successes that you've had. Maybe look at some of the struggles you've had. What is there to celebrate? What have you done that's positive? And really take a look at that. Because if people really know that you're there and again, they can trust you, they're going to hang in there with you and they're going to appreciate what you can do with them and for them. as you begin to look at and think about the steps to being a more effective leader, one of the things that people need to see is they need to see where you're going to be taking them. When you start looking at and taking people along a path, they need to know where they're starting. They need to know where they are in the process, and they also need to know where they're going to end up. So it's important to give them clear parameters. It's important to provide physical and psychological safety. They need to know clearly how things are working. When there's chaos in the environment, when there's chaos in the rules, when there's chaos in the communication, it just does devastating things to an organization. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to provide physical safety, certainly make sure that people are safe within their space. Also find out what they need and what does that mean to them, not just from your perspective, but what is their perspective. Think about psychological safety also. Again, giving people a chance to have input, to know what's going on, to anticipate things when changes are coming, when something major is going to be happening. Let them know ahead of time so they can prepare for it. Let them know what's expected of them, what they know when they know what their expectations are, they can function much better. But it's really important to provide that physical and psychological safety for folks so they don't have to worry about things. Right? Sometimes with leaders, we need to step away. We need to step out. We need to get away from things. But the thing I would also say to you is it's equally as important to be accessible, to make sure that people know where you are, how to get in contact with you. If they have questions at your door, it's one thing to say you have an open door policy, but it's another to keep your door closed all the time. I think it's important to recognize and to remember that as you continue to move along here, that you're going to learn a lot of new things. And as you learn new things and you try to pass those on to other people, or you pass on, again, you were a good worker, but now you're the supervisor, it's hard sometimes to remember what it was like not knowing. And this is the curse of knowledge. When you know something, sometimes it's hard to teach it because you forget what it was like not knowing. So take that time to, be present with them. Take that time to appreciate what somebody else has to go through or what they are going through. As far as I'm concerned, one of the most important things you can do is support others to surpass you. Help them to be better than you are. Give them the skills, give them the knowledge, help them to see some of the errors that you made along the way. And by doing that, what you will do is you will help them to kind of raise the ladder for them and help to boost them. And the more that you boost them, you yourself get boosted. There's the saying, I know John F. Kennedy was attributed to it, and I don't know where it actually came from originally, but it's the whole idea of a rising tide raises all boats. When you raise other people up, it raises you up also. And this one I would also say to you is incredibly important, is to operate according to your organizational values. Get to know what your organizational values are. I can't tell you how many times I work with organizations and I'll say, you have to operate according to your values, but what are your values? And I'll have them write down the top values of their organization. And it's amazing to me how many people can't do it because they really don't know what the organization values are. One of the things I would say to you is it's important to think about what the values are, to communicate them, to compare them with others, to be able to talk to other people and say, what's your understanding of the values? What's mine? And then go to your supervisors and find out what they say it is. Be clear with the organizational values, and then you can operate within them. Because if you don't have them, how can you operate in them? I hope this was worthwhile for you. If you have any comments or questions, please get back to me. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have. We thank you for being here today. Give us a like down below if you're inclined, and follow us. We got more videos coming out. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Be well.